Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and hopefully this will be the last project, or at least the last project series on the X-type before it's back on the road. This should be my new winter daily, and the only thing left to do is the rust, which we'll tackle today. It will be my first major fabrication project I've done where I have to actually make the pieces myself. I don't think you can buy sills for these, and there's no point in doing it because it's quite a simple shape. I bought a machine that we can actually bend metals. I'll show you that as well. I bought some sheet metal. I have a good welder from before. The only welding I've done before on the channel was on my XJ6, where we changed one of the cross members and put in some different mounts so we can put in the XJ40 interior. And I thought that went pretty well. I do want to learn more about welding, and the good thing about the X-type is those plastic sill covers. So it doesn't really matter what it looks like as long as it's strong and as long as I put the holes in the right place and I can get the sill covers back on. No one's ever going to see it, well, except you guys. And hopefully it's going to turn out pretty well. I have made a test piece with some bends to try and figure out how everything's going, but this is as far as I've gone. So let's have a look at it. I'll show you the templates I've made and everything, and let's start bending some sheet metal. I've laid this bright light here on the ground, so hopefully you guys should be able to see. This side is worse than the other, so I thought we'd start with this one. The other side, I can actually see where the holes go here, so we can use that as a template, but those holes, I don't need to drill those until it's all in place. So let me open the door and I'll show you guys the plan. And the only thing I've done is I've removed any of the sort of rust that could get off of my fingers. And let me get another light for you guys. I have also ground back a couple suspect areas to try and decide how far I'm gonna go. And I've made up my mind I'm gonna go until about here. And well, I don't know, maybe here. I haven't actually decided that part yet. It depends on what it looks like here, but most likely here. I just want to minimize the amount I need to paint because that's going to be covered, so that will be fine. But yeah, very, very lucky. The inner sill is completely solid, and so is this part here. So I just need to remove what is left of the outer sill on here on the pinch weld. And this reinforcement is completely solid, and all of this. The outer sill on the X-type is almost just decorative. It's just to hold the plastic sill on, because there's all the structure here, and you know there's a frame rail sort of going in here, and this is the reinforcement for the jacking point, which is still really, really solid. Hit all with a hammer, and that's fine. I'm gonna make this in two pieces because we have the same shape going from here until here, and then it goes out. So I'm gonna have to I'm gonna try and keep some of this because it's a little bit more of a complicated shape to make. Maybe just cut it out here and make this, but this is the same as that. And if we crawl underneath, I have ground back some of the metal here. Hope you guys can hopefully see all of this. Maybe it's a little bit too bright. Let me just adjust some things and you guys can see this a bit better. Okay, there we go. So this was all covered in a lot of surface rust. So I ground it back and it's really quite solid. Here is a spot weld I think goes into the reinforcement here. So I want to keep that. That's why I was checking around here, and it's really, really good. There's some rust right there around that spot weld, but this is all really rather solid, so we can go until right about here somewhere, and then my new part of sill can join with that spot weld over there. So that's how far we're going to go back, and that is about 50 centimeters until there, which is perfect because my new piece of metal is 50 centimeters wide. Here's the bit of sheet metal I picked up. This cost about 25 bucks or so. It is 1 meter by a half meter by 1.2 millimeters thick. I went with 1.2. Initially I thought I was going to go with 1, but they were out of 1, so I went 1.2, because originally it's something like 0.7, 0.8, and I think that's too thin back here. Also, because I'm not the greatest welder, I am going to overlap it, and then this will just make it easier for me not to burn holes through things, hopefully. So as I said, it's not going to be the most beautiful thing in the world, but it's going to be strong. So this is 50 centimeters wide. So that is, I will use the whole width of it. And that's just going to be really strong. That's no problem. And I need to cut out a piece of this to use so we can bend it. But let me go over and I'll show you guys my template, and then I'll show you guys sort of my idea behind figuring out the shape and all of that. Along with picking up some sheet metal, I also picked up this, which can make angles up to a little bit past 90 degrees. So you put your piece of metal in here, you clamp it down here with these little C-clamps, and then it can bend up there. See, that's 90. It can go a little bit further as well. So I thought that was a great thing to pick up for about 70 or 80 bucks. I'm hopefully going to use it a lot more times, but just for doing this, it's worth it. Because if you're going to do it like in a vise or something, you can really only do a small piece at a time, and I want to do a big piece to minimize the amount of welding I have to do, also to hopefully make it stronger. So I've made a couple of test pieces. This was just my first one to try and figure out the bends. But before I did that, I made a template, which I'm going to try and find. Here it is. This is my template. This is the pinch weld in the bottom. This is basically the whole piece that's missing. This is the flat top where the holes are, where you push the sill on. So the sill is held on with clips up here, and then it's screwed in from the bottom in here. And then this is the part going up over into the door. So that's what I've done. And the shapes are pretty simple. This is 90 degrees. The pinch weld down there. And that is also pretty much 90 degrees. However, this one here, I used one of these to get the angle. So that is the correct angle for that. And I can use that when I want to bend it up. And then I bent this thing up. However, initially I thought I was going to go one step further and take it up a little bit higher up. But when I ground it back, I found that was really solid metal up there. The bumpiness I was seeing there was, it wasn't rust, it was just some remnants from the weld or paint or something. So that wasn't actually rust. That means that this part over here is going away. I removed that from my template. So you can see that is my template going up until there. So my idea of making a test piece like this is I didn't want to waste a big piece of metal trying to figure out the bends and also figuring out which order I need to bend this in. That is one thing I realized, that this bend over here I need to do before that one, because otherwise that's really, really difficult. So I figured that out, and now I know all of that. So we'll move my template over there and we'll cut a piece of metal. I've marked out the piece I need here and drawn a straight line. I'm going to cut it with an angle grinder here, and then we'll take it over to the bench and start working on it. Here's the piece of sheet metal I cut out. So this is the side I cut, and the only thing I did was at the end I took the angle grinder, just did a little bit of an angle. Make sure that it's pretty smooth. You can still cut yourself on it, so you have gloves. And here's my little template. The thing I haven't made my mind up is if I want the perfect 90-degree part to be down at the pinch weld, or if I want it up here. You see, I've given myself a room for a little bit extra material. And I think I'm going to use that extra material at the bottom. So I think I'm going to make this my bottom piece. It's not perfectly straight because I can cut that on the car afterwards and then use a nice straight piece up top, and hopefully that will look nicer. So this is the way we're going to do it. I also noticed one thing, that this measurement here I want a tiny bit longer when I made this. So I have my steel ruler here, paint marker. So I am going to lay this down there, or actually I'm going to lay it up there, and then we'll have that little piece of extra to deal with. And we're seeing, what is that? That is pretty much 28 mil. Here, so we'll start with that on each edge. And of course, no, I'm not going to measure from here. I mean, I'm going to measure from up here. So that is a 90-degree straight edge. And I don't have any permanent markers, but I have a paint marker, so that's going to work just fine. So from up top here, 90 growing down. And we can extend it a little bit, because remember, we want to make this bigger. So the fold is at about 165 mil. So we'll make the fold about halfway between that. So we'll give it 2 more mil. So right about there. And we'll measure that. That is, yeah, bang on 167. And then we'll measure out that over here as well. And one's on the middle also. And then we can use that there to join it all together. It doesn't work perfectly on here because this piece of metal is still treated with some type of oil or something. I don't want to remove that until I'm completely done, because I won't be done today. So I'm not going to do that until I'm going to weld it in place, just so I don't get any flash rust on it. It's a very, very humid part of the year here. So even though I do have a dehumidifier in the workshop, it's still not going to be perfect. So that is the first one done. And then the other ones, they are exactly where I want them to be. So I'm going to measure those out, trace them out on here, and then we're getting ready to do the first bend. So I've drawn the lines here where I want it to bend. This line I need to draw on the other side as well. I forgot about that. So this is basically how it's laid out. This is the pinch weld, and this is the top here, and that's that. So we're going to bend this top here first 90 degrees, then we're going to bend the pinch weld, and then we're going to bend that bit. There, so this is a simple just 90 degrees. The only thing I've sort of changed with this thing I got here, because I'm using sort of the maximum thickness steel, and possibly even a little bit thicker than you're supposed to. It came with these cute little C-clamps. So I'm just putting a little bit bigger ones on there. Let's see, this one's a little bit stuck. Just so that it all holds together. It worked fine before when I bent a smaller piece, but this is quite a lot larger. So hopefully it can do it. And we're still lined up nicely. And I have it just clamped down into the bench. I think you're supposed to actually put it down with fasteners, but I want to be able to take it away when I need to use it, or not want to use it. Let's see. Facing a slight issue. I'm using pretty much the maximum thickness steel that this thing is rated for, and it worked just fine when I did a small piece, but I'm doing a big piece like this, it keeps pushing it back. You see here? So however hard I clamp this down, it pushes back. That's the only thing I don't really like about this machine. I probably am going to modify it. What I think I'll have to do is I'm going to cut this down the middle and do half at a time. It's going to involve a little bit more welding, but I think that's the only way I can do it. So let me cut this in half, and then let's see if we got better luck bending it. Now at half the width, it's no problem at all. So I did that 90 there. Now I have made a this is the what do I call it? This is the angle that this part needs to be at. So I'm going to bend this a little bit more until I get that angle. It's a bit more, but this time it's going really well. Somewhere around there, I think. A little bit more. Actually, a tiny bit more. It's very close to 90. It's somewhere like 70 degrees or something. And perfect. So you can take this off and then just bend the last bit down there. So this is the first fitment of the panel, and actually not too bad. It's way too long in the bottom pinch weld, but that is planned. This part is good. As you see, I'm gonna have to remove a bunch of stuff on there in the pinch weld, so it's gonna go down pretty well. It's up here where it needs a little bit of help. I'm gonna see if I can actually help that a little bit. I think we're gonna see this is technically the right side, or the furthest back piece that I've made. So honestly, that piece fits pretty well here actually. And then the other one, I could make it a little bit different for that side, and then it would fit perfectly, because if I move it there, it fits pretty well. The whole sill sort of changes shape all over. Right there, that's pretty good. So it's really that it's too long up there, but over here it fits really well, and I want it to go all the way to there. But let's see what. Remove that. And then change that pinch weld to go down a little bit more. But I think this is a really good place to start. So I have this piece, and then I can make the other side. After some gentle adjustment with a hammer and an angle grinder, so I cut off a bit of the top up here. I'm just holding it on here with vice grip. But you see, if I push it into place, it's really rather good. So very pleased with that, but it's getting kind of late, so I can't really do much more with an angle grinder and stuff tonight. So that's going to be it for now. But I will make the other piece that will go on here, bend that into place, and then this will all be ready to cut out the old metal and put it back together. So here's pretty simple. I mean, I can hold it into place, and I can actually trace around where I want to make the cut, and then this will weld really nicely together here, I think. And then this is solid, but this little piece here I need to make separately, and I need to make a bottom over here as well. So I need to have a look and see how that needs to be made. But the other piece here is pretty straightforward. And that's it for part one. Join me in the next part, where I think we're going to start welding, getting some new metal in, cutting out the old rot, and treating everything. So the thing I'm going to do is, when we cut everything out, I'm going to make sure both sides of all the metal I use are treated with weld-through zinc primer. And then when everything is done, we're going to drill some holes as well and fill the whole sill with cavity wax. So hopefully it will never rust again. Anyways, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. If you have some welding tips, I'd love to see them down below, or any tips for anyone doing their own metal work and fabrication. And remember, you got to start somewhere, and this is where I'm starting. And so far, I'm really happy with the results. Until next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.